So, I want you to just imagine for a second that you are completely stranded. Like you're on the side of Interstate 5, just south of the American River.
Oh, man. That is a terrible spot to be stuck.
Right. It's pitch black, it's midnight, and the dashboard of your electric vehicle has just, thrown up that final, terrifying, flashing red warning right before all the screens just go completely dark.
The dreaded 0% battery notification.
Exactly. 0%. You are essentially just sitting inside this 2-ton brick of metal and glass on the shoulder of a really dark highway.
Yeah, and the trucks are just flying by you at like 80 miles an hour.
It's terrifying. And in that exact moment of like this rising panic, you do not care about a clever brand name. You really don't want to read a corporate mission statement about green sustainability or whatever.
No, absolutely not. You definitely don't want a cute little cartoon mascot.
No, you just want a massive battery on wheels to show up in 10 minutes and get you moving again.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, you are looking for a hyper-specific mechanical intervention. You aren't trying to build a relationship with a lifestyle brand. You just want a fix.
Which is exactly why today's deep dive is going to be so fascinating. Because we are looking at an entity that seems to have built its entire identity around that exact specific moment of panic.
And, the way we're doing this today is going to be entirely different from our usual approach.
Yeah, totally different. I mean, normally we sift through these like 50-page industry reports, right? Or a dozen conflicting research papers.
Oh, yeah. Dense corporate prospectuses, endless data tables. We usually act as your human filters for all that information overload.
Right, but our source material for this deep dive isn't a mountain of data at all. It's actually just a literal fraction of a sentence.
It's honestly the absolute extreme of minimalist sourcing. I mean, we have exactly one title and one web domain to analyze today.
That is it.
That is the entirety of the provided material. There are no text blocks, no paragraphs, no charts.
Just 6 words, literally 6 words. Quote, Sacramento Mobile EV Charging Solutions, unquote, followed by the link, which is just https://sacramentomobileevecharging.com.
And our mission today is to somehow extract the maximum amount of meaning and purpose and digital strategy from this incredibly sparse footprint.
Because, I mean, think about it. In a world of endless content marketing, where every single company has, like, a 30-part documentary about their supply chain.
Right, or a massive social media presence.
Exactly. Deciding to present yourself this bluntly with just those words, that is a deliberate choice. So we are treating this as an exercise in reverse engineering an entire business model from its barest structural elements.
Well, and when a source provides only 6 words, every single syllable carries this immense structural load.
Oh, for sure.
There's no filler text to hide behind.
Yeah.
You really have to assume every word was chosen to perform a highly specific function. It's almost like code in a very tight software loop.
Like every character costs them $1 million or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, let's put that code under the microscope. We are going to look at the anatomy of this literal identity, starting with the very first word they use to introduce themselves to the world, which is Sacramento.
The geographical anchor.
Yes. And it's such a deliberate move. I mean, they don't start with a dynamic verb like charge or power.
No, they don't.
And they don't start with one of those futuristic adjectives either, like quantum or arrow or whatever. They start with exactly where they are on a map, Sacramento, California.
Which is fascinating when you look at the broader landscape of modern corporate naming conventions.
Right. Why explicitly ground a service in a specific city right off the bat? It basically elevates the location from a minor detail that's usually buried on a contact us page to the primary pillar of their existence.
Because for the last, 20 years or so, the trend has been towards absolute abstraction and regional ambiguity.
Yeah, companies want to sound infinitely scalable.
Exactly. A tech startup in a garage in Ohio wants to sound like this borderless global entity. So they use names like Omnicharge or Aperture or Voltex.
Voltex is a classic.
Right, but these names are essentially empty vessels. They mean nothing. They require hundreds of billions of dollars in marketing just to teach the consumer what that fabricated word actually means.
Yeah, I mean, Uber and Lyft are perfect examples of that.
Totally.
Those words, Uber and Lyft, they mean absolutely nothing inherently about driving a car until venture capital money basically buys that association in your brain.
Exactly. But leading with Sacramento is a total rejection of that abstract, scalable model. I mean, they are planting a flag in very specific, bounded soil.
It's a hyper-local declaration.
It is. And in the context of physical, real-world logistics, which, let's face it, EV charging inherently is, that geographical boundary is a feature.
Yeah.
It is not a bug. They are establishing a service area business model instantly.
Okay, but I have to ask, doesn't a hyper-literal name like that completely cap their growth? I mean, think about it. If Sacramento Mobile EV Charging Solutions is wildly successful and they want to expand like an hour down the highway to Stockton or, 2 hours over to San Francisco, suddenly their literal name becomes a massive liability. They've essentially painted themselves into a geographic corner, haven't they?
Well, they have if their goal is to become a monolithic national brand. But if their goal is immediate dominance of a specific local market, it's actually incredibly efficient.
Okay, how so?
Let's go back to your midnight stranded driver scenario. If you are sitting on the side of I-5 with a completely dead battery, a name like Global OmniCharge sounds terrifying.
It does sound pretty corporate and cold.
It sounds like you are going to be routed to an automated call center in another time zone, right? Whereas some operator who has never even been to California is going to try to dispatch a third-party contractor.
Oh, I see what you mean. Whereas Sacramento sounds like the guy driving the truck actually knows the difference between Business 80 and Interstate 80.
Exactly. It creates immediate local trust. It signals proximity. And when you are in physical distress, proximity is honestly the single most valuable metric you care about.
You want the physical distance between your problem and their solution to be as small as possible.
Right. And the name promises that proximity before you even dial the phone.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the actual subject matter of the name. Because right after planting the flag in Sacramento, they immediately state mobile EV charging. So again, zero ambiguous branding here.
Not at all.
They explicitly name electric vehicles, and they explicitly name the act of providing them with power.
It essentially bypasses the brand interpretation center of your brain entirely.
Yeah.
The moment a consumer's eyes scan the title, they know the where and the what without having to process any sort of metaphor.
I get the efficiency of it, I really do.
Yeah.
But I still kind of have to push back on this naming convention just a bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Naming your business entirely after its location and its exact function, it feels, I don't know, almost comically blunt.
It is very blunt.
It's like, imagine if someone opened a restaurant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of calling it the Rusty Spoon or, Bistro 44, they just slapped a giant neon sign on the roof that said New York hot food.
New York hot food. That's amazing.
Right. You'd know exactly where you were and you'd know exactly what you were getting, but it just strips away all the romance, all the narrative.
Sure.
So is there a hidden power here in sacrificing a clever, catchy, emotionally resonant brand name for absolute undeniable clarity? Or does this just make you sound like, I don't know, a municipal utility department?
Well, I think the difference lies entirely in the nature of the service you're actually providing. Because a restaurant is an elective experience, right?
Yeah, it's true.
You are seeking ambiance, flavor profiles. You're looking for a nice evening out. You want the branding to evoke a feeling or a certain mood. A name like Bistro 44 does that.
Right.
But EV charging is rarely an elective, leisurely experience, especially not in the context of this specific business model. It is a raw utility. It's often an urgent necessity.
Yeah, I guess when I want food, I might want an experience. But when my car is dead on the highway, I literally just want electricity.
Exactly. Because when you are stranded, you are functionally paralyzed. Your primary vehicle of transportation, your only means of getting home, is completely immobilized.
You're just stuck.
And in a state of high stress like that, the human brain has virtually zero patience for deciphering clever branding. Cognitive friction becomes infuriating.
Oh, absolutely. If I have to think about what your company does when I'm panicking, I'm just moving on to the next result.
Right. So they are betting that clarity is infinitely more valuable to a stranded driver than cleverness ever could be. Sacramento Mobile EV Charging isn't a boring name in that specific context. It's a beacon.
Wow, so it's like cognitive friction reduction as a form of customer service.
That's a great way to put it. It speaks directly to the problem-solving center of a panicked brain.
So we've moved from the where they are, Sacramento, to the what they act upon, which is EVs and charging. Now I think we have to look at the specific mechanics of how they operate based on the remaining words.
The how is crucial here.
Yeah, and that brings us to what I think is honestly the single most disruptive word in this entire source text.
You're talking about the word mobile.
Yes, mobile. This one single word explicitly contrasts their entire operation with traditional stationary EV charging infrastructure. And we really need to pull this apart because it represents a massive, massive paradigm shift in how we think about vehicular energy.
Really does. It flips the whole model upside down.
Right, because for, over 100 years, the paradigm of the automobile has been that when the vehicle needs energy, the vehicle must travel to the energy.
The fortress model of fuel.
Exactly, the fortress model, the gas station. It just sits there, completely stationary, buried in the ground, and you have to pilot your massive machine to its specific geographic coordinates.
To go to.
And when EVs came along, the industry basically just copy-pasted that exact same homework. We built stationary charging pedestals in grocery store parking lots. The car still has to go to the energy.
But the word mobile completely reverses that polarity.
It does. The energy travels to the vehicle, rather than the vehicle traveling to the energy, which fundamentally changes the consequences of running out of power, doesn't it?
It changes everything.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the whole psychological barrier to EV adoption, what everyone calls range anxiety, is entirely rooted in the stationary nature of the charging network.
Right, because if you run out of gas in a traditional internal combustion car, someone can just walk up to you with a 2-gallon plastic jerry can.
Liquid fuel is inherently portable. It is stable at room temperature. You can carry it in one hand, and you can literally pour it into a tank in 30 seconds.
It's an easy fix.
Yeah.
But electricity, historically at least, is not portable in any kind of meaningful quantity.
No, it requires a physical, tethered connection to a massive, immovable grid infrastructure. So a dead EV is effectively a brick. You cannot walk down the shoulder of the highway carrying a bucket of electrons.
A bucket of electrons, yeah. And usually a dead EV means you're calling a massive flatbed tow truck. Because towing an EV isn't like towing, an old Honda Civic.
No, it's completely different.
Right, you can't just lift the front wheels and drag it behind a truck, because the electric motors will actually generate current as the wheels spin, and that will completely fly the drivetrain.
It's a known issue. You have to lift the entire very heavy vehicle completely off the ground onto a flatbed. Then you have to drive it all the way to a charging station, carefully drop it off, and then plug it in. It is a total logistical nightmare.
So the word mobile in this source text signifies the decoupling of power from the grid. It means they have somehow managed to package immense, high-voltage, direct current energy transfer into a format that can literally be driven to a set of GPS coordinates.
They've essentially built the electrical equivalent of the red plastic jerry can, but on a massive vehicular scale.
It's energy on demand. Spatially unbound energy. And that leads directly into the final word of the title, which is solutions, plural, Sacramento Mobile EV Charging Solutions.
Now, that is a word that carries a very specific weight in corporate taxonomy.
Yeah, you don't need a solution unless you have an active, painful problem. Like if you are a plumber, that's just a trade, right?
Sure.
But if you call yourself Pipe Solutions, it implies that my basement is currently under 3 feet of water, and you are arriving like a superhero to save my property from absolute ruin.
Right.
So does using the word solutions inherently promise that they're going to fix your underlying anxiety rather than just simply plugging a cord into your car battery?
I think it does.
Oh.
Because the word service just implies a standard, predictable transaction. I give you money, you give me electricity. That's a service.
Right.
But solution implies an intervention. It implies a total transformation from a negative state to a positive state.
Yeah.
The driver is anxious, they are stranded, and they are immobilized. The arrival of this van transforms their state back to mobility and relief.
Ah, so it frames the EV driver not just as a casual consumer buying a commodity product, but as a person experiencing a crisis that requires professional resolution.
Exactly, which defines the precise gap in the market this entity exists to fill. Because the core problem isn't simply the car needs power. The core problem is the car is physically unable to reach the stationary power grid. That spatial gap, let's say the 5 miles between a dead battery on the highway and the nearest fixed charging pedestal, that is the intense pain point.
And mobile EV charging solutions positions itself exclusively inside that 5-mile gap.
Exactly right.
Okay, so we've deconstructed the literal English words of the title. We know they are a hyper-local, radically literal entity providing an untethered mobile fix for stranded electric vehicles.
Yes, we've got the physical identity down.
But the source material gives us one more piece of the puzzle. It gives us the translation of those exact words into a digital footprint. So we really have to examine how this literal identity manifests on the internet.
Right, the domain name mapping. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, because the URL provided in our source is an exact one-to-one mapping of the core company name. It is https://sacramentomobilecharging.com.
They drop the word solutions for the domain, but otherwise it is a perfect mirror of the name.
A perfect mirror. And an exhaustingly long one at that. I mean, think about actually typing that out on a smartphone keyboard while you're standing shivering on the side of a highway.
Oh, it would be awful.
Sacramentomobilecharging. That is 28 letters.
It's massive.
28 letters crammed together without a single space, without a hyphen, or any kind of visual break. It just looks like a typo waiting to happen.
It creates a massive cognitive load
Yeah.
just to visually parse all those letters smashed together like that. Honestly, it is actively hostile to human memory.
Right. So as someone who analyzes digital strategy, you have to explain this to me. Is the sheer length of this URL a deliberate trade-off?
Yes.
Because why wouldn't they purchase something like, I don't know, sacevmobile.com
Yeah.
or voltrescue.com, something punchy, right? Something you can paint on the side of a van in huge letters that people can actually remember. Are they seriously betting that algorithmic clarity is more valuable than human readability?
That is exactly what they are betting. What you are looking at here is the absolute crystallization of what we call an exact match domain, or an EMD.
An exact match domain, okay.
And to really understand why a 28-letter URL is actually a masterstroke rather than a terrible mistake, we have to look at the mechanics of modern digital survival, specifically in the realm of local utility services.
You're talking about the search engine algorithm.
Precisely. Think about the user journey in this scenario. The driver is stranded. They are panicking. They are not looking at the side of a passing van trying to memorize some catchy URL to type into their browser bar later when they get home.
No, they are opening their phone right then and there.
Exactly. They're opening a search engine or maybe using a voice assistant on their phone, and they are stating their exact problem out loud. They're sitting there saying, Siri, find mobile EV charging in Sacramento.
Ah, they speak the exact phrase they need.
They do. And by making their web address perfectly identical to that highly specific functional description, the URL basically acts as a tractor beam for that exact search query.
That is wild.
The algorithm looks at the panic driver search terms. Then it looks at this massive domain name, sees a 100% perfect semantic overlap, and connects them instantly. They are essentially wearing the user's desperate search query as their permanent name tag.
So the fact that no human being will ever actually type those 28 letters from memory is completely irrelevant to them.
Completely irrelevant. They don't expect you to type it. They expect the algorithm to serve it to you on a silver platter the very second you ask for help.
So it completely prioritizes algorithmic discovery over human elegance.
It really does. You know, in the early days of the internet, exact match domains were heavily manipulated. People would use them to game search rankings for generic terms. And the algorithms eventually cracked down on spammy EMDs.
Right, because you'd have a site like buycheapshoesonline.com that was just garbage.
Exactly. But for hyper-local, highly specific utility businesses, where the intent of the searcher perfectly matches the actual service provided, the exact match domain remains an incredibly potent strategy.
That is brilliant. And, you know, the outline of our source material specifically prompts us to look at the surrounding architecture of that URL, too. The suffix and the prefix.
Right, the .com and the HTTPS.
Yeah. And obviously, we don't need to explain the rudimentary mechanics of what a .com is or what an SSL certificate actually does mechanically. What's interesting here is how those standard technical protocols function psychologically in the context of this specific emergency business.
They function as rapid-fire trust signals in a high-stress, low-trust environment.
Exactly. The .com explicitly flags it as a commercial enterprise. If I'm stranded, I really don't want a .gov municipal page that just tells me about some city initiative launching next year.
No, that doesn't help you at all.
And I don't want a .org nonprofit page advocating for better EV infrastructure in California. I want a for-profit entity that is economically incentivized to come to my rescue right now. The commercial suffix basically tells me I can buy my way out of this immediate problem.
That's a really good point. And the HTTPS secure protocol prefix is honestly even more critical for a mobile service like this.
Why is that? Because of the payment processing.
Yes, because you are likely conducting an emergency transaction from the cab of your dead vehicle. You are using your smartphone, perhaps on a sketchy public cellular network, to summon a complete stranger with a heavy-duty generator in a commercial van.
Yeah, that is a very vulnerable position to be in.
And you are probably required to input your credit card information, your exact GPS coordinates, and your vehicle make and model into their dispatch system before they even agree to roll the truck.
Oh, wow. Yeah. The psychological barrier to entering that level of sensitive personal data while sitting completely isolated on the side of a dark road is immensely high.
Right. So seeing that secure protocol, knowing the traffic between your phone and their dispatch server is encrypted, it establishes a vital baseline of transactional trust before the physical interaction ever even begins.
The URL tells you what they do, the suffix tells you they are ready to do business, and the prefix tells you it's safe to pay them. That is an incredibly dense package of information crammed into just a web address.
We have literally extracted the geographical strategy, the service model, the target demographic psychological state, and the algorithmic discovery mechanism, all from a 6-word title and its corresponding digital address.
Which brings us to the final and honestly the most paradoxical element of our deep dive today. Because we have the precise map, we have the secure protocol to get there, but when we look at the source material we are actually provided to read,
We hit a wall.
we hit an absolute brick wall. Let's transition to what we are actually given, or rather, the glaring void at the center of the document today.
The contradiction of the excerpts.
Yes, because the source text begins with the phrase, quote, excerpts from Sacramento mobile EV charging solutions, unquote. And then it provides a link. And then
The document just ends.
Okay.
Immediately.
It's an abrupt termination of data. There is literally nothing else. It's an explicit contradiction. The text announces excerpts, plural, excerpts.
Right.
And the word excerpt fundamentally implies a selection of substantive material. It implies that someone has gone into this digital house, walked through the rooms, pulled out the pricing tables, the service area maps, the customer testimonials, maybe the technical specs of their mobile battery units, and laid them all out for us to analyze.
But instead, the source material halts at the very threshold of the web address. It is just the URL staring back at us.
It is the promise of information, followed immediately by the withholding of that exact information.
Yeah, it's like receiving a beautifully wrapped gift box, right? And when you eagerly open the lid, there is no gift inside. There's only a piece of paper with a map to another box.
That is exactly what it feels like. So it makes me wonder, can a URL alone even be considered an excerpt? Or is it strictly a citation pointing to a room we simply aren't allowed to enter during this deep dive today?
It really touches on the broader mechanics of how we interact with digital sourcing in the modern era. In traditional print-based research, an excerpt contains the actual meat of the argument.
Right, you read a paragraph from a book.
Exactly. You read the excerpted paragraph and you absorb the author's knowledge directly. The information is physically housed on the page you're holding in your hand. But in the digital age, a massive amount of our research relies on routing rather than housing.
Meaning the link itself is treated as the reference. The pointer replaces the content.
Yes. And when a source provides only the signpost without actually delivering the text, it forces a very specific discipline on us as analysts. It forces us to recognize the absolute hard boundary of our current information.
We can deduce their SEO strategy like we just did.
Right.
We can deduce their target market. But we cannot analyze their actual pricing tiers. We cannot analyze the kilowatt-hour capacity of their mobile vans.
We can't critique their customer service record either, because all of that data exists beyond the boundary line explicitly drawn by our source material today.
It's like we're standing on the sidewalk looking at the address plate on the front door, but we cannot see what kind of furniture they have in the living room.
And the disciplined approach here is to stop at the door rather than hallucinating the furniture. We have to acknowledge the dead end.
That's a very fair point.
The void in the source material isn't necessarily an error on the part of the provider. It's really just a reflection of how digital information is siloed today. It demands action. It essentially says, here are the coordinates of the primary source. If you require the granular details, you must cross the threshold yourself.
It refuses to spoon-feed the actual content, which, in a strange way, kind of respects the autonomy of the user. We have given you the exact location, but the final click is entirely up to you.
It is the ultimate distillation of our entire analysis today. stripped of all filler, all noise, all narrative, just the pure functional pointer.
I love that. So let's sort of summarize exactly what we have established in this uniquely sparse deep dive. Because we started with what appeared to be an impossibly brief text. But just look at the density of factual certainty we've managed to extract based only on the provided words.
Well, first, we confirmed the existence of a commercial entity, which was validated by the exact matching web domain and the commercial.com suffix.
Right. And then we define their core operational model, which is providing untethered mobile problem solving for a specific technology, explicitly targeted at the failure state of EV infrastructure.
And we established their geographical strategy, anchored firmly and unapologetically in the local logistics of Sacramento, prioritizing regional trust over national abstraction.
And finally, we mapped their digital architecture. A secure, functionally named website designed entirely to intercept search algorithms and answer a stranded driver's desperate voice query with mathematical precision. I mean, we essentially reverse engineered an entire business model from just 6 words.
It really demonstrates that when a company decides not to hide behind clever branding, their literal name actually becomes their entire value proposition.
It really does. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to maybe mull over on your own after this, because we spend a tremendous amount of time complaining about the modern internet.
Oh, constantly.
We complain about information overload, aggressive marketing funnels, pop-ups, and websites that force you to scroll past like 3 pages of personal origin stories before getting to the actual point or the recipe.
It's exhausting.
But when faced with the absolute opposite, a minimalist source that tells you exactly who they are, exactly what they do, and exactly where to find them online, without offering a single extra word of filler, does that void actually feel refreshing? Or does the sudden silence of a purely literal existence make you realize just how dependent we've become on the noise to tell us how to feel?
That is a fascinating question.
Something to think about the next time you see a business that just says exactly what it is on the sign. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We'll see you next time.